Thank you for joining us today for this informational webinar on the Hawai'i Garden to Cafeteria program. This webinar is being presented by the Hawaii Farm to School Hui's Garden to Cafeteria Working Group and the Department of Education's Food Services Branch Ainapono Initiative. The Hawaii Farm to School Hui is a program of the Hawaii Public Health Institute. We are also grateful to the Hawaii Department of Health for their support in the development of this plan. The Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria program is a comprehensive plan for safely growing, harvesting, and delivering fresh, student-grown produce to Hawaii Department of Education public school kitchens for use in school lunch and other qualifying Department of Education food service programs, such as the Fresh Fruit and Vegetable Program, breakfast and after-school feeding programs. The purpose of this webinar is to provide participants with an overview of the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria program and the steps necessary to participate in the program. We hope this webinar will be helpful in answering questions you may have about the program and empower you to be able to start the process of becoming a Garden to Cafeteria school. While this Garden to Cafeteria plan is currently piloting for Department of Education schools, we encourage everyone with a school garden to learn the protocols in this plan to help ensure the safe growing, harvesting, and sampling of garden-grown produce in the garden or classroom setting. If you have questions during the webinar, please use the question and answer feature of the webinar. We will address as many questions as we can at the end of the presentation portion of the webinar, and we'll follow up on every question after the webinar closes if we are not able to address them in the live webinar. During this session, we'll provide an overview of the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria plan, the application process to participate in the Garden to Cafeteria Pilot program, and requirements to be a Garden to Cafeteria school. We will also introduce you to who is presenting the materials and give a background on the importance of the program. We'll also walk you through the steps to participate in the program and direct you to resources to support you to start the process and how you find your regional coordinator. Aloha, my name is Neo Kinla. I am one of your webinar hosts today. As a way of brief introduction, I am co-founder of Grow Some Good, a school garden support organization on Maui, and I am one of the state lead trainers for Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria program and the regional coordinator for the program on Maui and Lanai. I am very excited for this opportunity to be sharing with you about the Garden to Cafeteria program as a vehicle for schools to engage students and staff in becoming more connected to the food they eat, inspiring them to try new fruits and vegetables in the garden or classroom setting, and to transfer that willingness to try new things into student-grown options in the school lunch program and other DOE school food service programs. Throughout this webinar, we will be referencing the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria plan. Participants in this webinar should have received a link to the plan document with your confirmation for participation in the webinar. For those watching this webinar at a later time, the plan document and other supporting documents may be found on the Hawaii Farm to School Hui's website. The links can also be found in the chat box if you are watching live. I believe that joining us today will be Dexter Kishida. Dexter is the Hawaii Department of Education's Food Services Branch Ainapono Farm to School Coordinator and is also the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria Program Administrator. Dexter will offer some background and mana'o on the Garden to Cafeteria program. Aloha, Dexter. Very glad you could join us today to offer some background on the purpose of the Garden to Cafeteria program. Looks like we might be missing Dexter right now. Folks, let's, maybe we can come back to Dexter if he's able to join us shortly. So up next we would have Debbie Milliken. She's joining us to help us dive into the main components of the Garden to Cafeteria plan. Debbie is the Sustainability Coordinator at Iolani School on Oahu and is a driving member of the Garden to Cafeteria Working Group, as well as the Oahu Regional Coordinator for Garden to Cafeteria program. Welcome, Debbie.
Thanks, Neo, and good to be on the webinar with everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I wanted to just begin by going over some general information on the Garden to Cafeteria program, including the sections of the plan. I will share with you what you need to do to apply and the resources that we will be providing to all of our participating schools in this pilot program. First of all, what does Garden to Cafeteria look like? We want to emphasize that Garden to Cafeteria is student involvement. So you'll see students harvesting from a school garden, students using food safety protocols for growing and harvesting, and then delivering that produce directly to the school cafeteria kitchen on their campus. We also wanted to let you know that Garden to Cafeteria is not necessary for things that we are all doing in our garden programs, including garden or classroom tastings, farmers markets or farm stands, or simply students bringing produce home to share with their families. Just a reminder that the protocols are not necessary to do these kinds of things. However, we recommend that you follow the best practices that we've outlined either in these protocols or in the Hawaii School Garden Safety Manual. You can find that manual also on the Hawaii Farm to School Hui resource webpage. Oops. Sorry about that. So just to begin, the idea of harvesting school garden produce in Hawaii to serve in our cafeteria is not new. In fact, the Hui has been working on this idea for many years, and many garden educators and school administrators have been helping towards these efforts. However, in 2017, we formed a committee, and with the help of Andy Nowak with Slow Foods USA and the Whole Kids Foundation, we were able to model the Hawaii protocols after those that have been created for other school district programs on the mainland. Here I'm sharing the 4 main components of the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria plan. The first part is the program overview, and that is essentially an introduction and a purpose to the program that was written by our committee. And just to let you know that this plan was developed by a large team representing state agencies, including the Department of Education, the Department of Health, Hawaii's Department of Agriculture, and many members of the Hawaii Farm to School Hui, along with Andy Nowak of Slow Food. The second part of the plan is the actual application itself. It's the information that you would need to provide at your school to share with us to participate in the program. Part 3 are the protocols and the food safety plan, which Sarah Freeman will be going over next in this webinar. And then part 4 includes some accompanying documents. So for now, let's begin with the program application. So how does your school apply to participate in the Hawaii Garden to Cafeteria Pilot? This pilot will run this school year, 2019 to 2020. The first thing we ask you to do is review the guidance document if you haven't already, and also the Garden to Cafeteria plan that we've shared with those 4 parts. You don't need to read that part in detail, but and then you should contact your regional coordinator for support and to answer any questions you may have at that time. Next, you will need to meet with your group that Sarah will be sharing a little bit more about in a minute to gather the necessary documents to submit your application. Once your completed application has been submitted, you'll be invited to participate in our Garden to Cafeteria training. Then, once you've been approved, you can implement the food safety plan and start providing your school garden produce to your cafeteria. So next, I want to go through specifically those steps, step 3 of how you complete your application. So these are what the 2 documents look like. Again, you can pull them up. They're a little bit longer, but the document on the left is the signature page. So this is a page that you will need to get signed by all the members of your project team at your school. The form on the right is a form that's required by the Department of Education Facilities Development Branch. It does have a few questions in there that might be confusing or you may not be familiar with. So again, please use your regional coordinator to help you answer some of those questions. On this slide, we're showing an example of what your garden plot plan could look like. That's essential for traceability, so that later, well, basically, so we know where the produce that you're harvesting is coming from within your garden. You should also include 2 photos of your school garden for us to review. Next, I want to share with you the resources that the program will be providing to you as a pilot school during this school year. First of all, your Island Regional Coordinator, who will help to coordinate the trainings and provide support and communication with all members of your project team. We also will provide to you at your training session a Garden to Cafeteria Startup Supply Kit, which will include all the materials that you need to get started this school year. It includes your record-keeping materials, your binder, all the plans and logs that are from the plan, all the harvest tools and bins that you will need, including harvest cutting scissors, a produce scale, and all the cleaning supplies that you will need to clean them. Again, those will all be provided to the school at the training. We'll also be supporting schools who apply with your initial water and soil testing requirements for this first pilot year. Lastly, we can offer a stipend to each school that is participating in the pilot program this school year of $1,000 per school. And I think that's it for now. If you have questions, I hope you have been typing them in. I'm going to send it back over to Neo, and I believe that Dexter has joined us.
Yes.
Hi, sorry about that.
Dexter has joined us. So Debbie, if you can back up to his slides real quick, we'll jump right in. Sorry, just a second. So Dexter is the Hawaii Department of Education Food Services Branch Ainapono Farm to School Coordinator and Hawai'i Garden to Cafeteria Program Administrator, as I mentioned earlier. And Dexter is going to offer a little background on Mana'o on the Garden to Cafeteria Program. Thanks for joining us, Dexter.
Thank you. Just quick recap sharing a bit from Department of Education School Food Services Branch that our goal is to feed our kids with healthy, nutritious, fresh food so they can achieve academic success. And to do that, we're doing a few things. One is our Farm to School program, which we've launched piloting at Kohala, Mililani, and now on Kauai. But another huge part is how much fresher and how much better can it be when our kids grow the stuff that they're going to eat, or they grow the stuff that their friends are going to eat. So that's where the Garden to Cafeteria program came out of, when my director, Albert Scales, said other districts are doing it. And I know Hawaii has said, no, really too high risk. But other districts have come up with this and good risk management protocols that aren't overboard, because that's the other part that he said, that it needs to be something that makes sense. So things like GAP certification, we wouldn't expect the school to pay $1,200 to bring an inspector in to certify a half-acre field that is used mostly for education, but that we'd also want to utilize in our school food. And so how can we do this? So we went to the experts and really sought the assistance of the Hawaii Farm to School GUI. So talking to Lydie and the team to come up with a good risk management plan. If you could forward my slide. And part of it is to help us achieve these 5 goals. That our target is to get 40% local. And while we define local statewide, we definitely would be including what we grow on site as part of it. And number 2, to increase student participation, we've seen, or at least I've seen, at the very least, I've seen personally the effects of when students grow and cook their food and how their consumption patterns change. That the excitement gets built when, even if it's only a handful of tomatoes that were served at the charter school I worked with, the kids would absolutely go crazy thinking or knowing that their contribution to that meal. So we want to increase our participation by 5%. That consumption of those foods also need to change. That we're going to reduce the amount of processed food and decrease the waste as well, therefore increasing consumption of what kids are actually what they actually order. Over time, we want it to be cost neutral, which means that we will be doing some efficiency training in our schools, because we also, in this Garden to Cafeteria program, want to be able to pay for the produce that we're getting. So it's not a handout that we're looking for, but not only having kids grow the produce, but kind of come up with a mini business plan that we would be able to get an invoice and then actually pay for the products that we're getting. And of course, through all that is systems modernization. In the start, we expect it to be a little handheld in how we invoice and how we process things, but getting to the point that we can actually utilize technology even better is our goal. And if you could go one more slide forward. Because when we asked the Hawaii Farm to School Hui to create this, we really did feel that the group was the experts to do this, that they could balance the needs of what we wanted in expecting the same level of what we'd expect from our farmers is what we expect from the school, in that they'll provide us safe, good produce that's not full of dirt when it enters the back door, that it's good quality, not full of bugs, etc. And that they could help us create that risk management tool and model while not being overly taxing to a school, knowing that it's still an educational institution. And so while year one was doing a smaller pilot, we are looking for additional schools that are willing to do this. And while it's not really difficult, because these are good practices that should be done in most, if not all, school gardens, we are looking for others to take this lead, that we may need to look at installing things like a hand washing facility or some other things that you'll go through today's training. But the next step is we're passing the plan through our risk management folks in the Department of Education, that we have now a proof of concept. We are taking the next step and seeing if anything needs to be modified, but while at the same time passing it through our risk management experts in the Department of Education to have complete approval from superintendent's office down, to then roll out in final status as a permanent program, a part of school food services branch. The roles, so my role, I think, is best utilized in connecting to the cafeterias. So especially during this next pilot phase, I'll be helping to connect the school gardens with our cafeteria staff to make sure that we're speaking the same language and that everybody understands what their roles and responsibilities are, how the produce should be coming into the cafeteria, and what the cafeteria manager should be doing to work with the school gardens as well. Communication definitely being number one. The last thing is that majority of the communication is going through regional coordinators. So make sure you note who your regional coordinator is, because that is where majority of the communication will be going to and through. And really the experts for your gardens. And I just really would like to send a huge mahalo to the Hawaii Farm to School Hui team that has been working really diligently now 2 years on this project to figure out a good balanced approach that we can take to risk management, to making sure that our kids receive a good, wholesome, healthy meal, but while also making it doable for schools to implement. So I really want to thank you. And thank you for everyone on the call that's interested in this. I see a pretty good turnout. So thank you all for your interest in this, and look forward to working with you all in the future. Again, I apologize for being late.
All good, Dexter. We know you're a really busy guy, but we really appreciate your time today, and especially for being such an awesome cheerleader and champion for the Hawai'i Garden to Cafeteria program. Mahalo for your time today, Dexter. So next, we're going to have Sarah Freeman joining us, and she'll dive right into the important elements of creating your Garden to Cafeteria project team, as well as the importance of following the food safety plan outlined in the Garden to Cafeteria program. Sarah is the new Hawaii Island Food Access Coordinator and a lead trainer for Garden to Cafeteria. And also she is the Garden to Cafeteria Regional Coordinator for Hawaii Island. Sarah, welcome, and looking forward to your portion of this webinar.
Thank you, Neil. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm first going to go into the project team. So in the plan, you'll see lined out in two different sections of the different roles and responsibility of everyone listed here. I just want to touch briefly on the first most important step when thinking about being a Garden to Cafeteria school is to read the plan, go through the guidance document, go through the plan, and then see if you can get all these different team members on board. And of course, reach out to your regional coordinator. The regional coordinator can help you guide through this plan. When you dive deeply into it, it might seem overwhelming at first, but just be assured that there is support for you to go through and do the whole application process. I'm going to go over a little bit just kind of what's going to be expected in the process. I've been working with the Hawai'i Pilot since 2018. So we've been meeting regularly every month mostly with these different team members. And I just want to say that the principal, the most important roles for the principal is to read the document and being committed to supporting the team through whatever comes up. They may not always be able to attend the meetings, but it is really important that they're on board and able to support. They're also usually the ones that are going to communicate with the IPM manager when pest management issues need to be addressed. And then the IPM manager, we have that they attend meetings, but that's going to really depend on their contract, whether or not they can do this extra time. And so that's really going to be up to the principal and the IPM manager to figure out. But and I know it's going to be different at every school to figure out how you deal with pest management. Sometimes it's you're going to reach out to outside services. So it's really good to start those conversations and also to understand if there's any spraying in and around the garden and if that needs to be addressed. The cafeteria manager is a critical role for this program. It's really important that they're at the monthly meetings, and that's that space for the cafeteria manager to share what they would take if the garden was growing it. And the more planning that's involved, the better that the garden and the cafeteria can sync. And that's also a time when the garden can tell the cafeteria manager what they have available, and the cafeteria manager can look at their menu and see if they can fit anything in. But I just really want to address that as far as the cafeteria manager goes, it's up to you what comes into the kitchen and if you want to take it or not. And it's really good. There's lots of really great protocols, but it's really good to give feedback about what's working and what's not working. And that's also the main point for those monthly meetings. It's a really great chance to connect with each other and go over these things. The other roles and responsibility of the team is the project and garden leader for the program. And that can be the same person, but sometimes there's multiple people working in the garden, or there's a food corps service member. But they have a really critical role of needing to deeply understand all the policies and procedures within the plan and understanding the food safety plan, because it is their role to make sure that everyone is complying and that they're accountable for making sure that all of the logs are filled out and that everything is done properly and that everyone is trained that's going to be working in the garden, including the students, around health and hygiene. So they play a really critical role in making sure that all the standards that we've put in place are upheld and that everyone is educated and understands those standards. And again, if there's any questions with understanding them through any part of the process, the regional coordinators are always there to support. So next we'll go back into we'll go to the next slide. And we'll go back to the general requirements for compliance and the food safety plan. So the first one is we'll go to the next slide. The first one is the garden site, and that's the facility branch form that Debbie just went over before. And the next is around the water quality, soil and plant health, harvesting practices, post-harvest, delivery and storage. So it's really, in the beginning part, it's really well laid out of the general requirements. And then the food safety plan goes in even more depth of how you apply those requirements. If for some reason you don't feel like your school fits into these, especially around water issues, that will be judged on a case-by-case basis, but you'll work really closely again with your regional coordinator. Can we go to the next slide? And we'll go to the next one again. So I want to next touch on the food safety plan. It is a really comprehensive document, and it is also SOPs, or standard operating procedures. So this is for the school. It's like we developed it so it's an easy to use guide to understand how to follow all of the food and health practices and we developed this based off of GAP and other food safety models. And so this is that element that Dexter was talking about, where we really took what the farms are doing and putting it into a format for the classroom. This is a really great opportunity for career training and so students understand that full process of what is expected in compliance when growing food. I would say and make that recommendation with teachers that are going to be running this program in the garden, that you're going to have to determine what parts that you only have a 45-minute or hour class. Some of these compliance things you'll have to figure out how to time management with them, but they're really meant to support you, and each school is going to be different, and so there will be support with your regional coordinators that some of the policies, the standard operating procedures will change based on the operations that you are doing. And the point of that is that anyone can come in and understand what you do in your garden to meet those health and safety procedures. So this is really, following this and understanding this is really important. It can seem cumbersome, but I just want to reiterate that there's going to be support and you'll be guided through this. As Debbie mentioned, once you're approved as a school, you'll be going through a training, and that's when Neo and I will come and we'll go through this plan a lot more in depth and do hands-on learning with you. That's all for my presentation. I think next we're going to go to questions.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. I also want to thank our other panelists today, Dexter, Sarah, and Debbie. We also actually have Lydie Bernal. She's the Hawaii Farm to School Coordinator who's helping us in the background with managing the webinar today. She's also going to be helping us answer some questions in the Q&A section, which we're going to move into right now. So I think so far we've only had a couple of questions. I'm going to let Lydie and Debbie and Sarah jump in here too as well, because I thought we had two questions. One of them has already been answered online. Debbie, do you want to take this? I'll let you take that question, Debbie.
Sure, I'll just at least handle that first part maybe. The question is, what is the largest school that has attempted to use the Garden to Cafeteria program? That's a good question. Obviously, that's going to come from one of the programs on the mainland, so I'd have to get back to you on that about. But I guess what prompted or made me think about in this question is just a reminder to everyone that, and I think Dexter said it well when he said, even the harvesting of one head of lettuce or a few leaves of basil is really important. It's important for our students to understand and recognize that they are growing food and they're producing it for consumption in their school cafeteria. So we're not talking about producing food for the entire school or everyone who eats in the cafeteria, but it's offsetting the requirements that the kitchen would have. For example, if carrots are on the menu and the school garden can provide 5 pounds of carrots, then the cafeteria manager would be ordering 5 pounds less. Or perhaps not, and it would just be added on to what they already have. Then the next question is, what if our school's cafeteria is run by an outside company like Sodexo? So the Garden to Cafeteria plan that's been created and the protocols to be used in this pilot program are only for Hawaii DOE public schools. However, we highly recommend using these protocols and working with your own school food authority, whether it's Sodexo or your school that manages your cafeteria, and then you make an agreement together on how best to proceed. So I'm at Ialani School, and we did this with and we went to Sodexo, who's managing our kitchen, and they're in agreement that the plan would work really well for them. And so that's how we're providing food from our school gardens to our cafeteria. The question about providing lunches for another school, I'm not sure how to answer that one because it's not clear whether that other school is a DOE public school or not. If it is, then that's where the protocols and the plan that we're talking about would come into effect. And I suppose everyone could jump in on this question. It's one we get all the time, obviously, is how do we deal with our gardens during the long breaks? I just suggested, you can try planning your plantings so that you have, a harvest just prior to, say, the holidays. And then for the summer, same thing, putting your beds to rest. Usually that means covering them with mulch would be ideal, or if not, something like cardboard would help to keep the garden healthy and moist throughout the summer. But I think Neo has good ideas on that too.
Yeah, I think cover cropping is one of your best options there. And we could send you more information outside of this webinar to get you going for how to summarize your garden. There's some good information out there on the web. So does anyone else have any other questions? Are we having issues with having the Q&A? Oh, let's see, we got something else popped up here. So who would like to take the question of, are there other schools participating in the pilot? Yes, there are. I don't have a complete list. Debbie?
So last year in our initial pilot, we had Kohala Elementary and High School participating. This year so far, we have not confirmed any schools as participating, but quite a few on each island that are showing interest and currently working on the application.
Great, thank you, Debbie. Aloha Viliami, I'm so glad you could make the call today. Your question about the DOE programs that could help get foods into the stomachs of your students. I did send you a link, I think, to the Food Services Branch page that will give you information on how to apply for apply for fresh fruit and vegetable program that we discussed. As well as a morning breakfast program, and I think after school feeding programs as well. I think there's one site there that can provide you the information that you'll need to answer those questions. I hope that's helpful right now, but I'm happy to connect with you again to get you further connected into how to apply for those programs or what's needed on your end. And just to answer an earlier question that you had, that from your cafeteria manager, there is, as far as I'm aware, no impact to the USDA rules and regulations or requirements for your full school food service manager in terms of providing garden grown produce into the cafeteria program. I don't know if Dexter's still on and can confirm that, but that's my understanding of it right now.
Let's see if Dexter can contribute to that.
Yeah.
At all.
Dexter, you still with us? You're muted, Dexter, if you're able to speak. If he can pop on, we'll get him to provide additional information on that if possible. Our next question was directed to Debbie and Jamie.
Actually, that's Juliana. Thank you so much for joining the call.
Okay, awesome. Hi, Julie.
That's great. Keep mentioning the similar garden cafeteria programs across the country. And yes, we have reviewed those protocols, and many of the best practices that were in there actually show up in our Hawai'i Garden to Cafeteria plan. So thank you for sharing that.
Awesome. Great. Yes, Julie has just confirmed that there are no prohibitions for school garden produce in the child nutrition program. So we'll take just another minute to wait to see if any other questions come in. If not, I just want to give a little shout out to Joe Watt, who was also instrumental in helping to develop the Garden to Cafeteria protocols and plan. Thank you for joining us today, Joe, as well as Joelle. She's one of our island coordinators for Kauai for the Garden to Cafeteria program. Do any of our panelists have any further comments that they would like to offer? Oh, let's see. We got something from Gregory. Question. Greg's an ag teacher at Waimea High in Kauai and grows a lot of food. How to proceed? Awesome program. Gregory, you're actually in the same boat as Billy Ami out in at Hana School. They're producing a lot of food, and I think it's really just figuring out how to get connected into the child nutrition programs at your school. Anyone else like to offer comments or to answer Greg's question?
So Gregory, I would first suggest that you reach out to Joelle. Her email address is right there on the screen. And jump onto that guidance doc and look through it. Make sure you take a look at the plan. And then when you're ready, you'll need to fill out those forms. So that's the school signature page, the facilities form, your plot plan, and 2 pictures of your school garden. And all that, Joelle will give you the links of where to upload that for our Google form. And then we can move from there and set you up with a training. And congratulations, that's fantastic. 5,000 pounds of food, wow.
Thanks for the question, Joe. That's actually a great one. I'm not sure if we got that covered today, but there are, actually, I hope Dexter can pop back in on this. Is you're asking if there are specific crops that fit easiest into the plan DOE menus. Like was mentioned previously, it's all about that coordination between the cafeteria manager and your project lead for this, your garden lead.
This is Sarah. I can give a little feedback on what I've seen work really well. One thing to consider is purple sweet potatoes. That's often in menus or can be used. Green onions, green papaya. And I just really want to encourage to grow things that are easy and simple for you to grow and easy to harvest. And really just, sit with the cafeteria manager and see what they would like to see and pair that up with what's easy for you to grow.
Aloha, this is Leidy. Also, the last page of the Garden to Cafeteria plan has a list of approved produce, so that would be a good place to look, as well as meeting with the cafeteria manager to figure out what they need.
Great.
And a quick jump in here, this is Debbie, to say that ulu is on the menu. So if your school campus has ulu trees, consider selling those ulu to the cafeteria.
All right, so for our attendees, if you have any more questions, we'll give you about another minute to pop in for those. Otherwise, I'm going to close out the webinar here after mentioning that participants in today's webinar should be receiving a brief survey that we would love for you to complete for us to give us feedback on this webinar and also any additional questions that you might have. I don't think any of us are going to give up our day jobs to do webinars full time, but we did our best today to hopefully inform you about the basic components of the Hawai'i Garden Cafeteria program. Not seeing any other questions come in. Leidy?
Yes, there's one more in the chat. How long does the application take to get approved? And we can do that relatively quickly in terms of working with you, making sure the application is finalized and ready to go. So please do be in touch with your regional coordinator listed here. And again, all the documents are available at farm2schoolhui.org. Under resources and garden to cafeteria, you can find the guidance document to help you determine if your school is ready. You can find the full plan to review the protocols. It also contains all the application documents. And there's a link to the online application. as well as the 2 documents you'll need to fill out and then upload as part of that Google form. And it's really exciting to have you all be part of this. It's happening, and we're happy that you're making it happen. So mahalo.
Thank you, Lydie. And to all our attendees, thank you again for joining us. And this webinar has been recorded, and I believe when we send out the survey, we will also be able to send out a link for you to share with folks at your school that might not have been able to participate in the live webinar today. Again, mahalo.
Wait, one more comment. Someone asked for that link, so it's here on the screen now for you.
Okay, great.
farmtoschoolhui.org is also will get you there. farmtoschoolhui.org.
Okay.
And Juliana has reminded us that the Farm to School USDA Farm to School grant applications are being accepted through December 13th. So that's through USDA Farm to School program.
Lydie, could just briefly tell us what that might help them out with?
There are a number of different categories. So there have been actually awardees from Hawaii for different purposes, planning, implementation, and training. So I encourage you to go to the website, and I am looking to post that for everyone right now. It is on our chat.
Great, guys. We will not close the webinar out right away. We'll give it a couple of minutes in case you would like to copy any links or something else out of the comments there. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if you guys were actually seeing the Q&A questions, but again, we'll do a follow-up email. And again, thank you everyone for attending. And again, thank you to the panelists.
Thank you.
Mahalo.
Great job. Mahalo.
Aloha.